Thank you for the opportunity to come again and share a little bit of our heart and our ministry with you folks. Since we were here last, the church has entered into a very strategic partnership with our family and with our ministry, and we're very, very appreciative of this new partnership. And I told the first service, when I say the word partnership, that's not something that I say lightly, because we cannot do, absolutely are incapable of doing what we do for the kingdom and for the gospel's sake without partnerships just like yours. On the flip side of that, you as a church family are not capable of doing what we do in other places outside of your local community without a partnership like ours. And that's what missions is all about. It's about introducing people to God wherever you are, and you're not there. And I am. And I'm not here, and you are. And so we work together to fulfill the Great Commission that God has given us. The Great Commandment is really simple. I know that people try to complicate things and make it really, really difficult to understand spiritual things, but Jesus made it real simple. Love God, love people. Amen. And that's the Great Commandment. The Great Commission is those people that we're talking about, introduce them to God wherever you are. And that's missions. Missions isn't necessarily foreign. It may be foreign to you, but it shouldn't be. Missions is introducing people to God wherever you are, whether you're in America or you're in Africa or you're in Asia or wherever it is that you are, that God has placed you in your sphere of influence. That's your mission. The Bible uses some unusual terms in regard to our relationship with God vertically, which should be our first and most important priority relationship. He also uses some unique language in regard to our horizontal relationships. He calls us some funny names. He says that we are ambassadors. When we think about Benghazi, we think about ambassadors, right? So it's hard for us to get our heads around us being that type of a person, a representative of a foreign nation, a citizen of a foreign nation, representing the interests and the message of that nation or that kingdom in another land. Well, the Bible tells us we're not citizens of this earth, right? Our passport, I have one in my safe, right? My passport says property of the United States of America, but that's not my permanent passport. My permanent passport labels me as a citizen of heaven, a son of God, a child of the kingdom of heaven, and our ambassadorship, every single believer, not just vocational ministers like your pastor, because that's his job, but his purpose goes far beyond his vocation, and so does yours. We are all, the Bible tells us, called ambassadors for Jesus Christ. That means, as scary as that sounds, that means that as an individual Christ follower, that you are a personal representative of the kingdom of God and His interests, and your job is to be the liaison, to be the mediator between the message of God and the people that you come into contact in the communities where you live and work. Whether you're going to school or you're working on a daily basis, you're pumping gas at the 7-Eleven, you're getting donuts, you're going to Publix, whatever it is that you're doing, when you bump shoulders with people and you lock eyeballs with individuals that God has placed around us, that's your mission. You are a missionary. You are an ambassador. The Bible tells us that we have all, not just pastors, not just vocational ministers, not just missionaries, but all of us as Christ followers have been given the privilege, the joy, and the responsibility of being ministers. And you say, I'm not in ministry, I'm an electrician. I'm not in ministry, I'm a lawyer. No, you're in ministry. Your purpose in life is centered around, revolves around glorifying God and honoring His name with your life, whatever it is that you do for vocation. So don't compartmentalize, right? Your vocation is separate from your purpose, but it's the tool that God uses for you to fulfill your purpose, and that is to honor Him and glorify Him with everything that you do. And so be a minister of reconciliation. To reconcile means to restore, means to heal, means to build up again what has been broken down. And when we're talking about relationships between people and God, The Bible tells us that we are individually and corporately as a church ministers of reconciliation. That means that my personal responsibility in fulfilling my purpose of glorifying God, my personal responsibility is to look for, to pray for, and to take advantage of opportunities that God gives to me to be a minister of reconciliation, of restoration between a broken person and their broken relationship with God. The way that we bridge that gap is with the gospel. Amen. Jesus Christ is the bridge that restores the broken down relationships between God and man, and we are the ambassadors, the ministers of reconciliation that deliver that message of hope to people everywhere we are. So missions is not just what I do, it's not just what the pastor does, it's not just a program, it's our DNA. As children of God, God has rewired us. He's completely reformed us and changed us into citizens of heaven with a message of peace and hope. And that's what we do on a daily basis as individuals, as a church family, as an organization. Our focus is around the gospel of Jesus Christ. And we introduced you, last time I was here, we introduced you to the organization and what we do around the world as a whole. Today we'd like to kind of narrow that focus just a little bit and help you to understand a little more specifically what it is that we do. But for those of you who are new or you weren't here last time we were here, let me just give you the shotgun approach. Manna Worldwide is an organization that is comprised of a team of missionaries that work together to build churches and start churches all over the world. And the reason why we do that, there's a reason behind everything that we do. The reason why we focus specifically on church planting is this, and you'll click with this when I explain this. The reason why we focus on planting churches is this, because you can feed people, you can clothe people, you can build people houses, but the Bible tells us, what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses what? His own soul. And so our core energy, resources, goal, the achievement that we want to bring to fruition is this opportunity for people all over the world to be reconciled in their relationship that's broken between them and God. And the church is the vehicle, just like you drove here in a vehicle this morning. Some of you through the snow and the ice and the cold because it was... You know, John said this morning, we were talking about the weather, and John said the word real feel. That's kind of a Florida weather thing. You know, when it's 98 in Florida, but then you add the humidity, because we have humidity. And, you know, I came over here from Texas, and so they don't have any at all. It's like you walk outside and you disintegrate into a dust storm because there's no humidity. You know, you have to have an IV all the time in Texas so you don't just blow away in a dust storm. But over here, so we've got something on them. We can say the real feel, if it's 98, is 247 because of the humidity. Well, it works, you know, when it gets cold in Florida, it works in the reverse. So when it's 58 degrees when you get up, it's actually 2 below zero. So I know you guys worked really hard to get here this morning, but I appreciate you coming. But we have the opportunity as believers to gather around a common message and a common goal of getting the gospel out to the nations, and God's blessed us with that opportunity. But we need to take that opportunity and that responsibility seriously as ministers of reconciliation, as ambassadors of change. And so I appreciate you folks allowing me to tell my story this morning. Manna Worldwide started about 14 years ago, feeding children. And our perception was, and this is just how we started, you have to forgive us, we're frail, and we're human, we're weak, and we don't always get God's big picture from the very beginning, but this is how we started. Children are suffering, and I don't care where you are, that stinks. I mean, it's just bad when you have something in your hand, the wherewithal to be able to make a difference and help somebody that is suffering, and you realize I could be the tool that God uses to make a difference in somebody's life. You want to change what you can. And so when we came across children in Manila in the Philippines that were begging on the sidewalk of the church services as our church family was leaving the church building there in Manila in the Philippines, we realized that these are people who live in our communities. Some of their lean-tos, the corrugated tin or the cardboard boxes, are actually leaning against the building where the church was meeting in Manila. And we've just had our eyes inward and downward for far too long. And when we took a second to raise our eyes, to look around and prayerfully consider what God would have us to do to make a difference in the communities where we live, the missionary there at the time, Bruce O'Neill, who's our president and our founder, he said he was overwhelmed with a burden of responsibility for himself and his family and his church to meet the needs of people who were living in their community and relieve their suffering. But he was also aware that they had the opportunity to make a difference in people's lives that they had really ignored for a long time, never been aware of, neglected to. And so that's what we'd encourage you to do this morning, is not only in this community but around the world, raise your eyes, turn your eyes from an inward perspective, from the perspective of I came here to get something from God and from you, to I came here to honor God. That's an upward perspective. And I came here to see and pray and ask God to provide for me knowledge, wisdom, discernment, opportunity to minister to the lives of people who are hurting all around me. Because you know what it does? When you take the opportunity to meet somebody's needs and love them unconditionally, without asking for anything in return, and regardless of how they respond to you, right? That's what Jesus did in the Scriptures. When you take that opportunity to look up, to assess the needs of other people besides yourself, besides your own church family, and you look outside and you see what needs people have, you see the broken lives, you see the pain, you see people suffering in all different regards, whether it's mental or physical or financial or nutritional or drug-related or family-related, relational, whatever those sufferings are, and you take the time to look up, to assess those needs, to determine by God's grace we're going to meet those people's needs and relieve suffering, lower the pain threshold, so that people can have a relationship with you and eventually have a conversation about spiritual things. That's the biblical model that Jesus gave us as an organization. And so we work through the local church. The church is the vehicle of change. You came here in some kind of a vehicle. Hopefully most of you didn't walk 20 miles from Claremont or something. But most of you came here in a vehicle. Your vehicle delivered you here for a specific purpose. And the church was designed by God as a vehicle to deliver something very, very specific. And that was an understanding that God exists, that He's a God of love, and He provides hope, and He provides peace, and He provides things that this life can never provide. And the agent of change, the vehicle of change, is the church. The agent of change is the Holy Spirit of God that lives in every single one of us. And so we are ministers of reconciliation, delivering the grace of God, the message that is good news. That's what the word gospel means. The word gospel means good news. And that's what our organization has determined to do, is to be vehicles that God can use by His agent of change, the Holy Spirit of God, to deliver the good news of the gospel. Well, how are you going to do that? You're going to do that by ministering to people who have needs. There are a lot of people around the world that don't have any needs, or at least that's what they think. They don't have any spiritual needs, they don't have any emotional needs, they don't have any tangible needs, and so they don't have a need for a God to rescue them. That's happened in Western Europe. That's happened a lot here in the United States. People don't have this perception that they have any needs, and so they don't need God. There are a lot of places around the world where they have severe needs, severe life-threatening needs on a daily basis. And God's given us the opportunity to simply relieve those sufferings, lower that level of suffering, and provide for those needs. And in that opportunity, God's given us the ability to build relationships very, very quickly. And people see our sincerity, our genuine love for God, our genuine love for them, and then they have the ability to receive our message. And that's what Manna Worldwide is all about, working through the local church to plant churches that will change people's lives not only for today, but for eternity, through the gospel and through compassion, humanitarian-related ministries. When we were in Ukraine, God made us aware, talking about getting our eyes up a little bit. God made us aware. I was a church planner. I'm a real task-oriented person, had my nose to the grindstone. We're hammering it out on a daily basis, trying to get things done for God and for His people. And God made me aware of a group of orphans in Ukraine that were severely neglected, that were severely abused, and severely taken advantage of. And I wasn't aware that they existed until this point. I was busy doing my ministry in the city and didn't really understand that there were a group of children, hundreds of thousands of them, way out in the middle of nowhere, intentionally, where nobody could see them, that had severe needs. And God broke my heart for these kids. Just a short time after this experience in Manila in the Philippines with Bruce O'Neill, and they came to visit us shortly after and saw that our hearts were kindred, that we had a common goal to get the gospel out to people who would never have that opportunity and relieve the suffering of children and break the cycle of poverty in communities. And so we partnered together years ago. And then about 6 years ago, the organization asked me to lead their ministries in outreach in Eastern Europe. And so I joined the team about 6 years ago. We've been working with Manna Worldwide for about 12 years. I've been on the team for about 6 years, and God has blessed us tremendously. And so that's what we do all over the world. We look for the people who are hurting the most and try to develop strategies to relieve that suffering, and then build relationships in those communities, build bridges into those communities through compassion-related ministries that allow us to deliver the gospel over those bridges that God's allowed us to build. And it's working all over the world. God's allowed us to help a lot of people, build a lot of churches, and change a lot of lives. And it's all because of Him. Let me show you a video real quickly that'll help you to understand what happened to us in Ukraine. We began to minister to these young people in the orphanages, and we understood that they had very severe immediate needs that needed to be taken care of, but our focus was a little short-sighted. When we first started, we understood very, very quickly, first day, within the first few minutes, that we understood these kids need shoes, these kids need clothes, these kids need water that runs in their buildings because they didn't have any running water. And when the water runs in the building, it needs to have the capability to be hot because it's cold about 8 months out of the year. Sometimes 9 months out of the year, sometimes snow on the ground for 7 to 8 months. And so imagine waking up in your bedroom inside your house and you're wrapped in your parka with as many blankets as you can possibly get on you. You can see your breath in your bed, and because it's so cold in your house. And then you go to the well and you crank up a bucket like this and you break the ice and you wash your face, shake yourself, and run into the cafeteria where there's no heat. And you eat cold soup and cold bread, and you're shivering, and you can see your breath over your breakfast, and then you go to school on the same property, and you can see your breath, and you're wrapped up in your parka, got your hood on, got blankets wrapped around you, and trying to study, trying to learn, and you're 4 or 5 grade levels behind because nothing is supporting your development. It's just a bad situation. And so our first impression was, man, we've got to change the physical conditions that these kids are living in. And we did need to do that. That was an obvious first impression that we needed to just take ownership in. And we did. And so God allowed us to really make a difference on that first campus. And 12 acres worth of properties. We put in toilets. We put in showers. We put in God allowed us to partner with Mitsubishi and gave us a $350,000 furnace. And coal-fired, not clean coal. Sorry, I just don't do that there. Coal-fired furnace that provided hot water and heat, and now they've got running hot water, so we wanted to attach a shower to the end of that, so we made a huge shower facility for 150 kids, and God just blessed tremendously. And then we realized that plan was good, but it was short-sighted, that we weren't meeting the needs of these children for the long term, because when they graduate or they age out of these systems, they are well-fed, they're well-educated, they're warm, and they're clothed, and now they're all alone. And they kick them out on the street. They have no support. They have no documents. They have nowhere to go, and they can't get to the city. And not only that, and as vulnerable and as terrible as it is to be alone in that regard at 14 to 16 years old, there are some people that are very, very helpful waiting for them in the village square. These people will offer them jobs. These people will offer them travel. These people will offer them money and safety and security. And the whole time, this is a guise. This is a big, corrupt, scandalous scheme to try to manipulate and coerce and even kidnap these children and put them into a life of slavery called human trafficking, either sexual trafficking or drug trafficking or labor trade, working in a factory or a sweatshop or in a field somewhere. And these children are taken, and they take all of their identity from them, and they will enslave them and abuse them and abuse them and abuse them and use them for financial gain until their little bodies are just used up and they don't have anything left, or they can't take it anymore and they check themselves out. And the average lifespan of a child in this situation in Eastern Europe, it's worse in Southeast Asia, but in Eastern Europe, the average lifespan of a child in human trafficking is 2 years. But that's okay, because there's a ready supply for them to come back and replenish their troops over and over and over again. The orphanages in Ukraine and the streets in Ukraine and other countries around Eastern Europe provide a steady supply of recruits for these just horrible, horrible people to take advantage of these kids for financial gain, and they do it over and over and over again. You know, cocaine you can use one time, but a little girl or a little boy, you can use 15, 20 times a day or a night. And it's not just little girls, it's little boys that are used in all of these different perverse ways as well. And so we understood, listen, clothes and shoes are good, education, water, food, vitamins, you know, those are all good things. But if we don't support these kids on a whole life basis and give them the opportunity to step out of that cycle that they're going into and help them to avoid that, to prevent this cycle of human trafficking, that they're going to be dead in 2 years, and all of our work has been in vain. So we built the Bridge to Life Homes program in Ukraine, and now it's spilled over into more countries in Eastern Europe. We have very large facilities that are operating in Romania now, some in Slovakia, some in Russia. But today we're focused on the project called Smile House in Ukraine. And I'm going to show you this video now. It's called Bridge to Life Homes, and this will kind of explain what we do and why we do it, to try to give these kids the opportunity to completely avoid this inevitable cycle. They're just set up for it in life, coming from an orphanage or coming from the street. They really don't have any other options but to be used by somebody else. Their only other choice is to live in the sewers under the street and maybe not survive. And so this is their only glimmer of hope. We're trying to give them a lot more healthy options in a lot more different places. And this is Bridge to Life Homes.
Ukraine is a country where modern high-rises and shiny new buildings clash with aging streets as the old and the new strive to coexist. Caught in the middle of it all are Ukraine's orphans. Right now there are more than 100,000 children living in the Ukrainian orphanage system, but that's only a portion of the total number of orphans who exist in this country. Every year, tens of thousands of children age out of the orphanages when they get too old. Life on the streets of Ukraine is unforgiving and harsh, and there's less than a 1 in 10 chance that any of these kids will eventually lead some kind of normal life. It's much more likely that they'll end up in prison or addicted to drugs. Most of the girls will eventually get caught and sold into sexual slavery. When children believe that these are their only options, suicide so often seems like the only way out. But there is hope. Bringing light into the darkness, Bridge to Life Homes reach out and rescue teens who have been forced out of the orphanages by offering them comfort and love. Children who have never had anything can finally feel joy. The house parents care for these kids, providing them with clothing, medicine, and food, yes, but more importantly, in the warmth of these homes, desperate teens can finally find the emotional and spiritual healing they need through Jesus Christ. Never again do they have to wonder if they must always go through life alone. The young adults who leave these homes are ready for tomorrow. They've been given education and useful skills that allow them to lead happy, normal lives. And they carry the hope of Christ in their hearts. Manna Worldwide needs your help. Bridge to Life homes are the only chance these children have, and you can make that happen. You can change a life forever. Go to mannafreedom.com and help orphans become children of God.
Let me introduce you, if you'll indulge me for just a moment. Let me introduce you to some of the kiddos that we're talking about this morning, because there are hundreds of thousands of children in Eastern Europe and Eurasia that are in this exact situation. As a matter of fact, in the country of Ukraine, there's about 120,000 children that live in orphanage conditions like we described. Another 130,000 of those children, like the ones you saw huffing glue or living in the sewers under the street in Kiev. Those kids, about 130,000 of those children live on the streets in Ukraine around the major cities. And that's just in the country of Ukraine. So about 250,000 children minimum. That does not even include the numbers of children like the ones that I'm fixing to introduce you to that came from very abusive, neglectful, high-risk family situations that were deteriorating, and they were in grave danger. And so the country of Ukraine, when you drive down the street in Kiev, looks like a modern miracle. It looks like any Western city, like you were driving through Frankfurt, Germany, or through Amsterdam. But if you go 5 minutes outside the city, or you dig a little deeper inside the city, very quickly you'll find out that these people are suffering tremendously because of the heritage that they've inherited from previous administration, previous corruption, previous regimes, and they're working really, really hard to change all of that. But until something changes dramatically, these folks are just really struggling in a very big way. So let me introduce you to some of these children, if I can figure out how to do this again. The project that we're talking about and asking you to prayerfully consider supporting this morning in partnership. Now, the church family partners with our ministry, and this has allowed us, this partnership financially has allowed us as a family and as a ministry to move forward with this project called the Smile House. And now we have a very, very large, beautiful house that is prepared and ready, completely remodeled and furnished and ready to go to receive children and take them out of these life situations. But the way that our organization works is that we allow the church families, individuals, corporations to enter into partnership and personally adopt, just like I have prayer cards on my table out here, these children. The first 5 girls that have moved into Smile House this last year have names and faces and needs and cards that talk about them, that allow you to be able to find out more information about them, to be reminded to pray for them, to be reminded of your commitment before God to support them financially, and whatever you do today through these commitment cards that each of you should have. I hope you have opportunity and access to have one of these cards, and the pastor will explain more later on. But these cards allow you to engage with the organization and choose the project that you would like to focus on. Our project name today is Smile House, and these girls that we're going to introduce you to all live at the Smile House, and we're seeking today your prayerful commitment in partnership with the church family and with God to support the lives of these children, so that when they have the support that they need, we can continue to grow this ministry and invite more young people to come in off the street and out of abusive home situations. So let me see if I can introduce you to the Smile House. This, by the way, is an 8,000 square foot home that was given to us. We have title deed to this property. It was given to us, handed to us. About $1.5 million property that was just absolutely given to us. Have a very similar situation in Romania, by the way, just recently. In the last couple of weeks, a lady in ministry there gave us a 20,000 square foot home to do the same thing we're doing in Ukraine. And so God's blessing the ministry tremendously. But in the condition that it was a year ago, it was beautiful and empty. Now the halls are starting to echo a little bit with children's laughter and children studying and running around and being a family. And so these first 5 girls have moved in and they're living life there now. All of these young people have come to Christ. They have surrendered their lives to Christ. They're active in their church because of this family relationship. They're actually active in community ministry, orphans, giving back and serving God by serving orphans in the communities where these families live. And so we'd ask you to prayerfully consider today adopting, in a manner of speaking, adopting one of these young ladies or more, and taking financial stewardship for the lives of these young people as God leads you to do. This is our family, the Rezmir family. Vladimir on the left, his wife Nadia, and their two biological daughters, Alina and Diana, live in Ukraine in the Smile House. Oh, and that's kind of what it looked like here this morning. It's all the snow, right? Now it's 247 degrees and we can get back to normal. But this is the family that is not only the house parents of the Smile House, but also the director of all of our NGO, our non-government operations, 501c3 in Ukraine called Manna Worldwide Ukraine. And he directs all of our operations. We have 5 homes like this that we support in Ukraine. This is the largest and probably has the potential to have the most effect on the most children over the years. And that's why we're highlighting it today. It's the Rezmir family now with their newly adopted 5 daughters. Beautiful kiddos. And this is what they looked like a month ago when they were celebrating Ukraine and their national heritage. These are folk costumes from Ukraine. And let me introduce you to the girls. And by the way, their prayer cards are right here. We'd ask you sometime during the remainder of the service, if you would like to come up here and pray for what God would have you to do, and take one of these cards or take one of each of these cards, whatever level of commitment that you would like to take, and prayerfully consider what you might do to support the lives of these young people. But their stories and their names, their faces are here for you to stick in your Bible, take with you, put on your bulletin board, put on your refrigerator, whatever you want to do to help you to be reminded to pray as you commit to take care of these kiddos. This is Zhenya, Yevgenia or Eugenia. She's 15 years old, and she wants to be a professional translator for a Christian organization. She speaks English really, really well. She kind of likes to be the center of attention. She's a real sweetheart, but she's never had proper attention before, right? And so with all kids that come with a lot of trauma and a lot of baggage, you have to deal with social issues and try to teach them how to live in family. And so she's a beautiful girl. She's very highly talented. And she likes a lot of attention, and that's okay because she's getting the right kind of attention now. God's blessing. She came to Christ, repented in front of the church on her knees, confessed her sins before the church, and asked Jesus Christ to come into her heart and save her, and was shortly afterward baptized because of the opportunities that you folks provided for her in the Smile House. Now we'd like to support her life and her development as she moves forward. Her sister, Katya, is 9 years old. And she's a sweetheart. She dances everywhere she goes. She never stops. She's got 2 speeds: dance 150 miles an hour and sleep. And that's Katya. She's a ball of energy and loves to dance and to sing, and has found a sister in little Diana, the biological daughter of the Rezmir family, and they are knit to the hip. They just are soulmates. And she is Zhenya's sister. Now, these 2 girls, when we picked them up, had been neglected severely for a very, very long time, severely malnourished because they were afraid to go home, and they were kind of subsisting out of trash cans and dumpsters around the city, and were waiting for the lights to go out in their house so that they would feel safe enough to go back home. They never could get to the kitchen because that's where the vodka was, and that's where the men were. And they could never go into the kitchen to get anything to eat, so they had to eat on the street. And so they came to our house, and they've never missed a meal since, thank God, and thanks to your faithful support, that will continue. But that's Zhenya and Katya. Yana is 17 years old. She and her sister were both beaten severely by multiple men that came into the home. And Father's House, our partner organization, identified the need with these girls and brought them in, helped to stabilize them and helped to rehabilitate them mentally, emotionally, socially, and then transferred them to us. And they now live in our home. They're our daughters now. Yana is 17. She wants to become a professional chef. She's studying at trade school right now, at a culinary school, to learn how to be a chef, and doing really, really well. She's actually in her first internship at a major restaurant, a very large 5-star restaurant in Kiev, Ukraine right now, and so she's doing really, really well. Yana, if you meet her face to face, you'll notice a big scar that runs all the way across her face from her former life where she was abused in multiple unimaginable ways in her previous life, but God's healed her physically and spiritually and allowed us to continue to minister to her and allow her to grow normally. Her sister Lena is a great singer. She was on Ukrainian Idol there in Ukraine, actually sang on national television and auditioned for Ukrainian Idol, and she is also active in family life and in ministry life through the local church, working to serve orphans in the community. And then little Yana is 15 years old. We picked her up on the street. We couldn't go to her house and get her bags. We couldn't get a backpack. We couldn't get a suitcase because it was too dangerous for her to go back to her house. And so social services identified her and her location and told us where to pick her up on the street. And she came to us with a t-shirt and some jeans and a pair of tennis shoes and just what she had on her back. And that's it. And God's allowed us to be able to not only replenish all the things that she needs for life, but help to restore her emotionally, socially, and spiritually. And she's trusted Christ and is moving forward as well and serves. She's just such a sweet, humble servant and serves like a little soldier behind the scenes to try to help other children. She's been to camps with us for orphans, been to vacation Bible schools. She does community outreach with us. Just a sweetheart of a humble servant. Really sweet little girls. And these are the girls that we want you to consider adopting. In a manner of speaking today. We want you to consider what God would have you to do. The pastor's going to come and show you how to use the cards this morning to do whatever it is that God leads you to do. I would encourage you to come and take a prayer card and pray for these young people as you support the growth of their lives. And as these children grow up and they're successful and they move forward with their lives, with their families, and they generationally change the nation of Ukraine, more children will move in, and we'll come back and ask to see what God will help to do in their lives as well. But for today, these 5 young ladies are who we would like you to pray about helping today. So this is how you can help. Fill out a commitment card. Make all checks payable to the local church. Or if you're using an envelope, make sure that you write on the envelope, Four Corners Baptist Church, because we're a local church ministry. We don't want you to send things to Fort Worth, Texas, to our office. What we want you to do is grow and encourage and unify the missions outreach of this local church. And so make all your checks, your envelopes payable to Four Corners Baptist Church. And then the pastor will consolidate all of that and send it to Manna Worldwide. Mark on your checks or on the note line in your envelopes, Manna Worldwide, Smile House, Ukraine. And then he'll know exactly where to send that. And these 5 girls will get what you send specifically for this project, and it won't go into the general fund. All that's a good thing. What we're trying to do is focus specifically on Smile House this morning. And then email me, get some more information. And as the pastor mentioned earlier, prepare a team. Because what we really specialize in as an organization is not just check writing ministry. We want you to take ownership and pride in ministry in this service that we're providing for these children. We want you to go and meet Yana and Lena and Zhenya and Katya and Yana, number 2, Yana 1, Yana 2. We want you to meet them personally, face to face, and see what it is that your prayer, your energy, your effort, and your resources have done to completely revolutionize the lives of these young people. We want you to come and meet them. We want you to come and serve them. We want you to come and serve with them. We want you to come and learn from them what the grace of God can do in a life when you surrender to His leadership and you're obedient. And we want to take you there to serve. And this is your project. And so that's what we're trying to do today. I'm going to invite the pastor to come. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your heart of partnership with us. And thank you for the opportunity to share the story today.